From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Top of the morning to all of y'all security gang, and welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast Practitioner Brief. James Azar here with the latest. It's Tuesday, December 13th, 2022, what many of you will call the December Patch Tuesday or the last Patch Tuesday of this year. Now, we'll have more on that later, either today, tomorrow. I'll be kind of sharing a bunch of stuff, so tune into our Twitter page and our LinkedIn page. As stuff comes out tomorrow morning, we'll do an entire show, as I typically do on Wednesdays after Patch Tuesday, talking about the whole slew of patches that come out. But no one is as excited for Patch Tuesday as the vulnerability management team and risk team, who are enjoying their cup of coffee this morning and getting ready for a chaotic December as we get ready to address all of those challenges. Before we get into this morning's program, though, there's my double espresso. Whatever y'all are drinking this morning, I hope you enjoy it. Coffee cup cheers. I want to kick off this morning's show with Fortinet shipping an emergency patch for already exploited VPN flaws. Yesterday, Fortinet issued an emergency patch to cover a severe vulnerability in its FortiOS SSL VPN product, warning that attackers have already exploited the flaw in the wild. The critical level advisory from Fortinet describes the bug as a memory corruption that allows a remote unauthenticated attacker to launch harmful code or execute commands on a target system. The heap-based buffer overflow vulnerability in the FortiOS SSL VPN may allow a remote unauthenticated attacker to execute arbitrary code or commands via specially crafted requests. Underscoring the urgency, Fortinet has warned that it's already being abused in the wild and are asking all of their customers to patch immediately. This is being tracked to CVE 2022-4247, and you want to make sure you get this addressed with your teams right away. We'll move to our second story this morning, where an Uber data leak is now following a breach from a third party vendor. The information, which apparently seems to be belonging to Uber, has leaked online. The source of the data is likely a third party IT vendor. A user with the moniker Uber Leaks made public on a hacker forum about a 600 megabyte archive file allegedly containing 20 million records of data coming from the Uber systems. An analysis done shows source code, internal task management information, encryption keys, and over a dozen documents, each containing hundreds of thousands of Uber emails. One spreadsheet named Report contains what appears to be a list of more than 16,000 employee names and email addresses. Another spreadsheet named Users contains the emails, names, email addresses, and employee ID of over 5,000 people. A very small archive file allegedly associated with the Uber Eats food delivery platform was also leaked by the same user, but it only appears to have test data. Uber confirmed in September that a threat actor had accessed internal tools after a external contractor's account was compromised. However, this one seems to be attributed to Tectivity, I believe, software provider, noting that the attacker also leaked an 18 megabyte and a 25 megabyte archive file allegedly containing data associated with Tectivity and travel management company Trip Actions. These archives appear to contain source code as well. According to Tectivity, the investigation is ongoing, but so far it has confirmed that the exposed file includes device information such as serial number, make and model, and technical specs, as well as user information, including first and last name, work email addresses, work location details. The firm says it doesn't collect PII like home addresses, government identification numbers, or banking information. This is still getting investigated, obviously, but not good news for Uber. Twitter is also confirming that the data leak over the weekend is actually from something they've already reported in 2021. Twitter confirmed that the recent leak of millions of members' profiles, including private phone numbers and email addresses, was the same data breach disclosed in August of 2022. Twitter says its incident response team analyzed the user data leaked in November of 2022 and confirms it was collected using the same vulnerability before it was fixed in January of 2021. As soon as we became aware of the news, Twitter IR team compared the data in the new report to data reported by the media. The comparison determined that the exposed data was the same in both cases. So nothing new there, just someone potentially trying to use the popularity and the fact that Twitter is obviously in the headlines to try to capitalize on old data and potentially get someone to pay them for it. VMware is dealing with a new Python malware that backdoors into their VMware ESXi servers for remote access. The undocumented Python backdoor targeting VMware ESXi servers has been spotted, enabling attackers to execute commands remotely on a compromised system. The virtualization platform commonly used in enterprise to host numerous servers on one device while using CPU and memory resources more effectively. The new backdoor was discovered by Juniper Network researchers who found the backdoor on a VMware ESXi server. However, they could not determine how the server was compromised due to limited log retention. They believe the server may have been compromised using CVE 2019-5544 or 2020-3992, the vulnerabilities in the open SLP service within ESXi. The new Python backdoor adds 7 lines inside one of the few ESXi files that survive between reboots and is executed at startup. Usually the file is empty apart from an advisory comment and an exit statement. One of those lines launches a Python script saved as store /packages /VM tools .py in a directory that stores VM disk images, logs, and more. The script name and location makes Juniper Networks believe that the malware operator is intended to target VMware ESXi servers specifically. And so something to keep in mind here. The mitigation at the moment is the following. To determine if the backdoor has impacted your servers, check for existence of the files mentioned above and the additional lines in the local.sh file. All configuration files that persist reboots should be scrutinized for suspicious changes and reverse to correct settings. Finally, admins should restrict all incoming network connections to trusted hosts. So keep that in mind, and something to add on your already busy Tuesday here. The DOJ has announced the arrest of 4 individuals for their alleged role in a fraud scheme targeting businesses, banks, and individuals. The 4 individuals, Joel Zubayd, David Gorin, Julian Rebega, and Martin Mizrahi, are charged with defrauding victims of more than $9.2 million and laundering the proceeds in an indictment unsealed last week. According to the indictment, between April and June, the 4 defendants participated in at least 3 fraud operations, including at least 2 business email compromise schemes. As part of these attacks, the defendant targeted employees in charge of making payments on behalf of their businesses with fraudulent email messages that asked them to make wire transfers to bank accounts under their control. Victims of the BEC were tricked into sending $5.4 million to bank accounts controlled by the scheme participants. Most of the funds were transferred to the defendant's bank accounts. Seeking to conceal the source of the proceeds, the defendant transferred the funds to other accounts or converted the money to crypto. The 4 are also charged with participating in a scheme to fraudulently submit over $3.8 million in charges using stolen credit card information using point-of-sale systems associated with firms that Mizrahi and Rebega controlled. The defendants were also charged with wire fraud, bank fraud, conspiracy to commit money laundering, and aggravated identity theft. This is obviously going on the list of people who've been prosecuted over the last several weeks by the Department of Justice. Finally, the final defense bill has a bunch of cybersecurity provisions, a great rundown of those. So the 2023 National Defense Authorization Act has $858 billion in funding. The bill authorizes a $44.1 million funding boost for Cyber Command's Hunt Forward missions. That's cyber personnel that's been deployed to Ukraine, Lithuania, and Croatia. The measure would also codify in a law the State Department's Cybersecurity Bureau, which launched earlier this year and is helmed by the first Senate-confirmed cyber ambassador. The legislation also directs the Defense Secretary to provide lawmakers with an annual briefing about the relationship between Cyber Command and the NSA. The NDAA would also create an Assistant Secretary of Defense for Cyber Policy position at the Pentagon, something this administration had previously objected to. The bill also provides Cyber Command new powers to conduct offensive digital operations with presidential approval in response to an active, systematic, and ongoing attack against the U.S. So this is active cyber defense at this point in offensive operations, preemptive operations. The policy roadmap directs the intel community to maintain a detailed list of foreign spyware vendors that pose a potential counter intel threat to the U.S. and grants the Office of DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, the power to prohibit spy agencies from using or purchasing such software. It also mandates a biennial unclassified report through 2032 election cycle on Cyber Command's election security efforts. Notably cut was a proposal to designate systematically important entities to the most vital U.S. critical infrastructure that would have required operators to enact strong digital security standards and share threat intel with government in return for federal support. This was part of the Cyberspace Solarium Commission recommendation that did not make it into this bill. That's it for our show this morning. Tomorrow, we'll be back to cover everything going on Patch Tuesday. Good morning to Bob. Top of the morning as well. And thank you. Happy holidays to all. Just, a few days from Hanukkah, a few short days from Christmas, and hopefully nothing crazy happens in this time period. We'll bite our tongues so that everyone can enjoy a holiday this year. Thank you all for tuning in. Please make sure to subscribe and follow us on your favorite podcast listening platform and on your favorite social media platforms. Till tomorrow, have a great rest of your day and stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.